every so often, Matt, I see an opportunity for me to stick up for Clay Helton. So I'm going to take it up right here.
You do know the risk that you're taking here, right?
Especially with you and the other. I can do it on a solo video and maybe
Sure.
snow some people over, but I'm going to stick up for him right here, just in regards to the offensive line is supposed to be one of the best in the country, correct? The depth is the issue.
It's supposed
The
to be very,
starting
like the
five.
starters are supposed to be very good. Yes. I don't know about best in the country, but they're supposed to
I
be
said
very
one
good.
of
And
the
there's
best.
sure
One of the 10 best in the
starters
country.
are expected to be the starters are expected to be very good as long as they stay healthy. Yes.
And he recruited and signed those guys.
Yes, he did.
Okay. All right. Just
it also took a while for them to develop.
Very good. Very good.
The USC fan base here in the Voice of College Football is gonna crush me if I don't push back against Clay Helton praise at every possible point.
That's not praise. I'm just clarifying a point that he did have some nice recruiting classes. Two of them cratered just to unbelievable degrees for a USC program.
Sure, but then came the player development side. Now, I will say that hiring Clay McGuire to coach within the air raid system, that was a good move. But that's a move he should have made at the beginning of when he brought Graham Harrell in. He had 2 years with Graham Harrell, an air raid offensive coordinator, and he didn't have an air raid offensive line coach. So Clay Helton was late to the party on that, and that's why a few seasons slipped away from USC. So even when Clay Helton did something good, he still didn't pull it off the right way.
So, Matt, I don't know that we've addressed, with all the Lincoln Riley talk since day one with you, and of course we talked to Matt even before Lincoln Riley took the job, but in terms of the live shows here, we haven't really, at least I haven't heard from you. I've certainly had my many comments on various platforms assessing his stay at Oklahoma, because you can take two general sides, and I think there's truth on both sides. One would be he inherited a top 10 program. He won a lot of games. He failed, and sometimes miserably, in big games on big stages, though, against the elite of college football. So those would be the knocks against him. He did not significantly improve the defense, whether find a defensive coordinator who would significantly upgrade it to, I don't want to say elite. That would be maybe a bit of a stretch of what you could do with a Big 12 defense, but something in the top 25 range nationally, something like that. That's the negative narrative. The positive is that he upgraded recruiting at Oklahoma. He was handed a program that was strong, but not excelling, not continuing to move the needle and trajectory on the upswing, and he moved it in that direction. He came within a whisker of beating Georgia, the team that could have won a national championship at the Rose Bowl in 2017. He certainly infiltrated the program with all sorts of high-end players on the offensive side, developed quarterback play that was unprecedented for that period of time in college football. And probably lastly, he dominated the conference. So national pundits and fans would point to the inability on the big stage and only count those as big games, but to win conference championship after conference championship in all the key games against the best teams in his own conference, he consistently did that.
Yeah, it's an always fascinating conversation because it has some parallels to other sports. Like when you look at Lincoln Riley having to go against the Alabama Clemson axis with Nick Saban and Dabo at the height of their powers. It's a lot like what men's tennis has been the past 20 years with Djokovic, Nadal, Federer. So anyone outside of that axis of supreme elite power gets put in the shadows of those elites. And like, not everybody's Nick Saban or Dabo. I mean, they set the bar so absurdly high, set such an absurd standard that when measured against those two, you're always going to fall short. And so Lincoln Riley could be viewed as, well, just part of everybody else, that he couldn't break through that wall of Alabama, Clemson supremacy. But he was pretty much better than just about everyone else. The Ohio State being an exception under Ryan Day, the Buckeyes were able to make a national championship game. Were able to beat Trevor Lawrence and Travis Etienne in a playoff semifinal and do it pretty soundly with Justin Fields. But for the most part, Lincoln Riley was better than all but 2 or 3 programs in his stay at Oklahoma. And so naturally, with USC and the Pac-12 both having long college football playoff droughts, that's a question that's going to hang over him until he answers it. Now, I would say that, being an 11-win program, 12-win program, on a regular basis, as he was at Oklahoma, winning those conference championships, let's consider, some other situations. Let's consider what USC was for most of Clay Helton's tenure, other than the 2 years when Sam Darnold rescued the program. USC was not even, good. USC was, average and sometimes well below average. Certainly last year, USC hit rock bottom, also had an atrocious 2018 season. Look at Texas. Look at what Texas has gone through, cycling through coaches, Tom Herman, Sark, and now also had the bad Charlie Strong years as well. I mean, Texas has, been immiserated, for the past 10 years or so. And so when you look at Lincoln Riley's body of work at Oklahoma, it shouldn't be just viewed in a vacuum or relative to Saban and Dabo. It should be compared to places such as Texas, places such as Michigan, where Jim Harbaugh had the hardest time for several years breaking through. So when you look at various national situations, not just what Saban's doing in Tuscaloosa, what Dabo has done at Clemson, and a side note, we'll see if the Dabo empire, it really still has a firm foundation this year. That empire could be on the wane. We will see about that. But that, to me, is the most compelling question of this season, even more than Lincoln Riley at USC. Because, if Clemson has slippage, that has major ramifications for the rest of the sport. But anyway, I look at Lincoln Riley's body of work at Oklahoma very favorably. Oklahoma fans would be technically correct to say that each Oklahoma team was slightly worse each year, that the 2017 team was clearly the best, and 2018 was slightly worse, and 2019 was slightly worse, and 2020 was slightly worse. But they were all conference champions. They were all playing in big-time bowl games. And so having that level of consistency measured against a Texas, measured against a Nebraska, measured against a Michigan, measured against all these other programs which have
Miami
fluctuated in their results,
Florida State.
Absolutely. That's really kind of the big picture, which says, wait a minute, we can find flaws in Lincoln Riley. He's not God. He's not a messiah, but he's pretty darn good. I mean, if he's an Olympic bronze medalist, that's essentially what he's been, with Saban having gold and Dabo having silver. It's not that bad in a larger picture. It's still a very, very high standard, and hopefully he can take it to the next level at USC. And that means winning the playoff semifinal, playing for national championships.
Yeah, it's a fascinating topic, no doubt. And, while each of those teams through that series of years from 2017 on decreased in its quality,
it wasn't by much.
No, so we will see now with just a different set of, components to work with, location, recruiting footprint, facilities, all of it, how that opens up for him from here on out. Yeah.
And I think the only other point to make here is that, another big plot point for the 2022 season is how Spencer Rattler performs down in South Carolina. Like if he has a big year, that'll raise some questions about Lincoln Riley. But even with that having been said, Lincoln Riley, when he had the Cadillac quarterback, Baker, Kyler Murray, Jalen Hurts, his offense rocked and rolled. And he has that Cadillac quarterback with Caleb Williams. You know, one could say that in 2020 with Spencer Rattler, that Oklahoma looked uniquely vulnerable to a degree it hadn't previously under Lincoln Riley. But we know that Caleb Williams is the real deal. I mean, I don't think anyone disputes that. So you give Lincoln Riley a real deal quarterback, his offenses max out when he has, you know, a top tier quarterback. So, you know, you can poke some holes in Lincoln Riley, but getting his offense to roar when he has the right quarterback, that ain't one. That is not a place where you can criticize Lincoln Riley. So yeah, I'm definitely a believer. I'm definitely sold on him. Definitely think he's a top 5 coach in college football. Some analysts put him outside the top 5. Some analysts put him behind Ryan Day, behind Luke Fickell. Yeah, I'm not one of them. I have him as a top 5 coach behind Saban, Dabo, Kirby. I would, you know, slot him in at 4 or 5. So I'm definitely a believer in Lincoln Riley. And that would exist, by the way, people watching The Voice of College Football, that would exist whether he was at USC, whether he was at Oklahoma, whether he was with the Dallas Cowboys, no matter where he was. I'm sold on his ability to coach offense.